ladies and gentlemen of the illustrious Simian clan. I am Hargrave Proudclaw, and I hereby present this Heroes of Armello tier list. Many of you may be opposed to a rabbit ranking and sorting the heroes of the clans, but I assure you there will be no undisclosed bias from myself, as I hate them all equally. We begin with the Wolf Clan, the warriors who let their giant weapons do the talking. Don't get me wrong. Their intelligence is limited to figuring out how to kill things more efficiently, but it is worth noting that they perform their one singular talent quite well. The Winter Wolf, Thane Grayman, the most basic protagonist you could ask for in a game, complete with a giant sword and an ability that encourages recklessness. Discarding a sword card in battle will grant you unavoidable piercing attacks on your enemy. Suffice to say, combat with Thane usually results in death for at least one involved party, and although Shimmer Shield puts him in a more precarious position, unless he has the Berserker companion. I must say, I do respect a man who values action over all that politicking and trickery that permeates my own clan. I would say he's worth B tier. For being solid and basic, the Howling Arrow River. Among the base game heroes, River was one of the most infuriating to fight against. Her ability is to inflict 1 point of unavoidable damage before battle when attacking, and that includes the king, letting her steal victory from under the paws of the prestige leader. On the final turn, however, this is now far easier to do with any hero than it deserves to be so. After 4D, checks of increasing torment or middling combat, stats hold her back more than you'd expect. I give her C for the niche applications of her ability and the hilariously impossible achievement associated with it. Anyone who got it was obviously match-fixing. Manya, the Iron Guard captain, you know. I am trying very hard not to use the scientific term for a female wolf, but it's very tempting. Discarding a shield card in battle gives Magna Reflect dice. So anyone trying to attack her is in for a nasty surprise. Try the Shimmer Shield spell. If you want to be a special kind of evil, it makes a complete fool out of the king himself. Normally the most dangerous opponent, completely overpowered. Did you know she's captain of a guard unit consisting only of females? And have you seen her belt lying with foxtails by the wild? Why must every woman I come across make me uncomfortable at best? Manya goes to I tier so she can leave the rest of us alone and hopefully stop appearing in fan art all the time while she's at it. Thane Grayman. You heard that right. It's Thane's disgraced and rot-infested brother. Thang's ability is to cancel an enemy's counterattack entirely if he manages to overkill his prey, which also comes with the added bonus of rupturing everyone's eardrums. Normally rot is undesirable, but towards the end of the game's lifespan, they started adding heroes and items geared specifically towards corrupting yourself as fast as possible. This combines fantastically with a ring that raises your fight score, while at low health increasing the chance to trigger Fang's ability. He belongs in I tier, but he still lost the fight to Thane, because in fiction the underdog always wins. The next clan we'll look at is the Rat Clan. The businessmen, the spies, the assassins, the guys that pretend they're Armello's mafia. Whatever you wish to call them, I know them very well, due to some resourceful individuals whom I would introduce you to. But then I'd have to kill you. These guys weren't exactly built for battle, though I hear the phrase Rat King means something very different in the Simian clan. So maybe it's for the best that their chances of becoming king or queen is lower than most. First up is Mercurio, the Grinning Blade, more like the Grinning Ghost. You want to know what his ability is? Steal 1 gold from a hero when taking their villages. 1 gold coin is going to make all the difference, I am certain. Look, you can't fault a guy for having solid body and wits, but it shouldn't come with a barely useful ability. It requires you to actually take villages, which will be convenient to you if your quests take you there. Otherwise, it could be useful combined with a ring that lets you scout players that take your village. Mercurio gameplay is just so unremarkable that fan fiction writers can't even remember the spelling of his name. Mercutio gets into tier for that. And because he killed the guy who fixes my glasses every week. Next, Zosha, the assassin who works for a talking corpse known as the Night Mother. Does that make Zosha's amulet of choice? The listener. She does have an achievement attached to her which is very easy to acquire by doing absolutely nothing, so I think it fits solidly. Zosha is awful. Her ability is constant stealth at night. Even when not in a forest, let me tell you something about stealth. Ambushing someone doesn't stop them from counterattacking, so unless they have bad fight scores, Zosha, with her total of 4 body points, is just going to get slaughtered in the fight anyways. Zosha gets D tier for horrifying durability. If a Zosha player ever wins the game, they are either cheating or the other players colluded against you. There is no other explanation. My future sight tells me Sargon is next, so this guy can apparently see the future, which is how he ended up, named after a Simian clan philosopher. Or so I am told. He can see the top card of the 3 decks, which means you can control your hand more just then. Take cards before your opponents can get them, and have some awareness of what others are drawing. Sargon has some decent casting abilities too, Wyvers, but a huge hurdle to success is the body stat of 4. This is surprising. The only rat with a decent information network is the one who's masked and mysterious. Regardless, this is a game of meritocracy, so Sargon will be placed in C tier. Knowledge can be just as powerful as magic, but you probably want actual magic. Finally, the only hero it costs an arm and a leg to work with, as I can attest. This is Griot, the Butcher Baroness Riot, provider of Armello's meat market. Where does it come from, you ask? Ask my foot. Apparently, she thought it would get her some good luck. Griot's ability is getting extra clan affinity at night for every trickery played that day, you know. You could just say +1 die in combat, but that would be too simple for Smarty Pants developers. At any rate, Griot has a fairly decent ability, but it relies on excessive, rapid-fire trickeries and taking as many settlements as you can to reduce the costs. So I am putting Griot in C tier. Not that she's bad. I am just sick of her hogging all the fan art. Next we have the Bear Clan. This clan consists of highly powerful magic users, even the most physical among them. They're apparently the most in tune with the wild, which is probably just something they claim, in order to sell the wild as a legitimate religious entity. I've seen those druids. They are not as kind and happy as you think they are. Still, magic is powerful when used properly. So let's see how the most magical clan fares. Sana, the wild priestess, the most basic mage character in the game. Sana possesses the ability to use her spirit score in place of her fight score. When fighting corrupted heroes, Banes and the King, and high spirit makes her an excellent caster, of course. Her actual fight score is low, which means being attacked is quite damaging. Still, with the right equipment she can fight back decently. I'll put Sana in B tier for the flexibility high amounts of magic bring to the table. Next is Brune, the Scarcaster, and the only hero to be given actual voice acting. Brune leads an order of bear warriors that were exiled from the clan for their embarrassing choice of weapon. Seriously, I don't care if it's made of stone. It looks like a giant ear cleaner whenever Brune casts a spell. His fight score increases for his next battle. His low spirit score might make this look like you can't do much with it, since the boost lasts for 1 battle only. But if you get the apprentice or conjurer, you can dramatically increase your odds in your next fight, or deter others from attacking you on their turn. Brune goes to B tier for sheer firepower. And now a Teddy Beargor is the chosen vessel for the wild, giving him immense spiritual power, and he's about as clueless as a stuffed toy. Luckily, players are usually not as clueless, so lawyer-friendly Winnie. The Prue over here is actually one of the earliest signs of pay to win. His ability is that ending your turn in the forest gives him a wooden skin, which negates 1 damage source, which can mean combat damage, spell damage, and I am not making this up. The damage from entering a stone circle while corrupt. Amazing how the spiritual bear clan fights the best while corrupt by the rock. Rot damage doesn't even remove the wooden skin. Gore gets in a tier for this ability, combined with his other stats. Finally, Jordana, the Witch of the Wild, scary beyond all reason, and another sign of that pay-to-win thing you know. Here's this massive essay on the Steam forums about how bad Jordana is, but if she's so bad, why do all her opponents gang up on her without fail? Her ability is the most elaborate of them all. Spells she casts on herself are instead turned into a curse card at the end of the turn, depending on the spells sacrificed. Remember how rot cards were pretty much bricks because burning or casting them can hurt if you aren't corrupt. Now you can discard them for a curse that steals a random stat from another player until their death, and that's just the obvious tactic. While you can no longer cast spells to yourself on your turn, that just means you need to cast more proactively. Just be careful because the curse cards can be stolen and used against you. Otherwise, I put her in a tier for power and flexibility. The Bandit Clan. Oh goody. The brigands and thugs who don't fit into any other clan. They were just 7 bandit tribes until someone gained the courage to rise up and unite them all into a cheap imitation of an actual clan. I mean, they don't even have actual rings, besides one actual new ring. Their rings come from other clans, which I am sure saved precious minutes of coding at the developer's office. Also, I think it's insulting that this clan had more effort put into its lore than any of the others prior to the novellas. And those aren't even about me. Come on, people. Scarlet, the Bandit King. Yes, King, even though she's a woman. I would have thought women loved nothing more than to remind you which gender you just got beaten by. But with a neck like that, maybe her head is somewhere in the clouds. When Scarlet saves a terrorized village, she gets a free follower. Note that it doesn't matter what terrorized the village. Scarlet could cause it herself, and they'd still serve her purposes. Very interesting. Either way, there are many powerful followers, and being able to run through them to find the good ones earns Scarlet a spot in B tier, though I am not certain as to whether or not the game allows more than one copy of each follower at a time. Be careful about what quests you choose. Silas, the deranged and unhinged otter, the Simian clan will just love him, because he's a cute and adorable animal turned into a total psycho. Not that Silas doesn't have a reason for it being made to watch your entire village burn, because you stole a fish will do that. Silas hates the king and his guards, and actually gains a bonus for being criminal scum. You can even get paid for killing mongrel dogs of the Empire by using the single unique bandit ring, or use the newest ring to get lots of spell cards, since you are going to lose prestige when they start committing Sudoku, trying to kill you. Celeste goes to a tier for sharing my hatred for the mongrel dogs of the Empire. Horus, the Iron Poet, and former mongrel dog of the Empire. Wait, why do I keep calling them that anyway? Horus made the crucial mistake of thinking a psychopath tyrant king might not be worthy of the throne after all, and was so removed from his post. Should have been a lawyer then. He could argue his case by badgering the witnesses. Anyway, the mongrel dogs still respect him, so as long as he has no bounty, he can switch places with them any time. Sound boring? What a grand and intoxicating innocence. The ability might not be used all the time, but you'll be very glad you have it when you do. And Horus has good stats to go along with it. Solid B tier. Twist, the Master Thief. Twist was high up in the Thieves Guild before the king put a torch to it, when they wouldn't work for him sadly. He decided to spare the tiny little squirrel instead of someone with an actual ability. Twist has constant, always on evasion, and will steal a card from the player that attacks her. And that's it. Her stats are terrible. Stealing cards isn't helpful, since they have to attack you for it to happen. Evasion is negated by scout effects anyways, and if you end up fleeing into a peril, you automatically get the peril's effect. twice as the only hero to make the game less fun for both her and her opponents, so she gets Tyr. What a twist. The Dragon Clan. The biggest disappointment, since No Man's Sky on launch day. We were promised actual dragons in Armello, only for expectations to be subverted when we found out that it's only their leader, and he's a Komodo dragon, not a fantasy dragon, and the rest are reptiles. It still amuses me that the store page advertises a brand new quest system. Literally all this means is you have no context for quests, because the clan uses hieroglyphs instead of actual language. This clan also worships the rot, which means none of them suffer rot damage, and also brings up all sorts of lore questions when you consider they're still able to collect spirit stones and encounter the druids. But I'll spare you the full tangent. Let's get this over with. Leader of the Dragon Clan and the Worm's chosen hero. Well, what does that make the other three lizards who don't drool? Voladar's ability is to control Banes, sort of ending your turn. Next to a Bane causes it to attack the next thing to move adjacent to it. If Banes didn't have the uncanny ability to get suspiciously lucky in battle, I would never acknowledge this as an actual skill. Unfortunately, for Voladar, he's been given the curse of low body score. So like most leaders, he crumbles under any sort of pressure. Even though I've seen this ability used in interesting ways, I can't justify anything higher than D tier. Noxano, what is she? Again an iguana, a salamander, that would actually be fitting considering the flaming whip attack. A Doxana hunts the avatars of the wild, the druids. She can still get the random druid encounter, but at least it's written for her to reflect her lore, even though it wasn't rewritten for the other lizards. Oksana's ability is the most baffling I've ever seen. Attacking another hero forces them to discard a spell card before combat starts. Is this all they could come up with? You might be able to know if such a card is in your enemy's hand, if you are paying attention. But it's likely they'll lose a handbrick instead of something important. You could have made her steal active spell buffs or something cool. Oh well, Oksana gets D tier for being useless as a farm tool, and as a lusty lizard maid. Nazar Dagozar. His brilliant ability is to create a copy of himself that vanishes the instant anything touches it. You might think this is great for getting opponents to second-guess themselves, but the truth is that the double can be exposed far more easily than it should. If it's on a forest at night and not in stealth, it's the duplicate. If it's in the palace, it's the real deal. The double can tank perils, removing them completely. But due to the way the double is implemented, this is harder than it should be. The illusion is created using a unique card that pops into your hand every turn. And like with Yordana's curse cards, they take up hand space and can be stolen. The illusion card is a free rot symbol every turn. However, so I will grant Nazare C tier for a number of niche utility effects, along with the amusing stat spread of all fours, which is not only how he walks, but also indicates your impending death if you dare to select him. Agnaya the tortoise. I thought we had tortoises in Armello already. Come to think of it, there are snakes outside this clan too. What was the point of this clan again? Well, this tortoise has sworn an oath to the worm, and centuries later we still don't know the details. Does she hold the real power in the clan? Nobody knows or cares upon killing an enemy in battle. Agmia gets regenerating health for a turn. Coupled with good combat skills, Agmia is actually not that bad. Here is nothing really special about how she plays. She's as solid as the shell on her back. However, tortoises are the eternal nemesis of hares. So for the honor of my kind, I must dock her arbitrarily of tier, and she better not challenge me to a race anytime soon. Speaking of my kind, okay, here we go. The rabbits. It is disgraceful to call this pathetic collection of ear twitchers my kin, but I suppose it'll have to do. If the people of Armello actually use their brains and could tell the difference between a rabbit and a hare, we would have kicked out the inferior rabbits by now, and I would be much better off for it. But that's neither here nor there. I begrudgingly present the so-called heroes of my clan. Why don't we start with the joke character? Alicia, wardress of the Warrens. More like wardress of the wardrobe malfunction. What even is this git? And is that a staff with a protractor? Is this supposed to be some kind of symbol? Because it makes her look like a clown. Fitting for a harlequin, I suppose. And what is this clown's greatest circus act? Building walls around settlements. Wonderful. Something to slow everything down. When trying to get to town, Ton Howard would love this woman. Building walls doesn't even stop Banes from terrorizing villages. And it's even harder to get in to save them. Certified F-tier hero. Can't even do what she set out to. Protect the people. Barnaby the Tinkerer. The Screwloose the Dwarf Rabbit. The guy who compensates for being small by decking himself out in heavy armor and wielding a giant hammer. At least my inventions actually work in practice. Do you want to know what his wonderful ability is? Equipment cards can be sent back to his hand and re-equipped at no cost, causing his hand to be clogged with junk equipment that's likely to be lost to a king declaration, or even better, stolen by the enemy, who can then equip it for free. He's only ever selected for battle stats, which, while adequate, can be found in several other superior heroes. Get this kid back into the F-tier daycare center so I can ignore him again, and stop banging on that anvil. Already it hurts my eyes. Last but definitely least, Amber. Veilbriar, your name is poison upon the lips that speak it. Once part of a family famous for losing a war against themselves, now famous for dethroning my family and having my money and my fame redistributed. You know, most rabbits escape poverty through prostitution, but I suppose wrecking someone else's life is just as viable.
Funnily enough, I seem to remember that your niece was fond of both options.
As for her pathetic excuse for an ability, a higher chance of getting treasures out of dungeons, just wonderful. Her claim to fame is literally plundering the former homes of her ancestors and pawning it off for money. This is what passes for prestige these days. You had better hope a sequel doesn't come out, Veilbriar, or you might just be missing from the roster. You have tiered trash, now that the deplorables are out of the way. We can finally discuss the only member of the clan worth any attention. It's time to talk about Hargrave Proudclaw, the Thunder Earl, the Lightning Lord, and an all-around swell guy. My family may have been branded traitors, but I will let my abilities define me as a person. If I end my turn on a plain or mountain, any who approach me will take 1 point of unavoidable damage. A hair trigger, one might say. It is a perfectly consistent ability that forces enemies to think twice about where they go, and they better hope I don't get stealth somehow. What's that? If I shoot a mongrel dog of the Empire, I get a bounty, my friend. A bounty is temporary, but the satisfaction of killing a mongrel dog of the Empire is everlasting. Truly, only I am worthy of the prestigious tier. Well, that concludes this Armello tier list. It took some effort to get through it all, but I hope it proved informative. If you enjoyed this presentation, I suggest subscribing or leaving further thoughts in the parchment below. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen of the illustrious Simian clan. And remember, the good life is a process, not a state of being. It is a direction, not a destination.
Hargrave, you owe me a new hat.